Thank you, Chair Cantwell, and thank you, Mr. Washington, for your years of public service, including 24 years of service in the U.S. Army. The aviation challenges of the past months demonstrate that our nation's aviation system needs steady leadership, and we've had acting leaders at many important FAA positions for too long. We do need a Senate-confirmed administrator. And while it's vitally important to have these positions filled, in my role as senator to provide advice and consent, I want to ensure that we have the right people in these positions. As you know, the FAA has a $24 billion budget, about 45,000 employees, and the responsibility to oversee the most complex aviation system in the world. And as we work to implement the bipartisan infrastructure law and pass a new FAA reauthorization bill, the next administrator will have the responsibility to see that these laws are implemented effectively and appropriately. Now, Mr. Washington, the first criteria that I use to provide my advice and consent for an executive branch nominee is to determine whether or not they have the requisite experience to perform the role for which they've been nominated. I recognize your significant experience in the U.S. Army and your experience leading public transit agencies. You have comparatively less experience working in aviation, having become the CEO of Denver International Airport in June of 2021. Aviation experience is important for this position, and as you know, the federal law listing the requirements for the FAA administrator states that the nominee must have experience in a field directly related to aviation. If you could describe to me your aviation experience and how that experience provides you the background to be an effective FAA administrator.
Well, thank you for the question, Senator. I point to a number of things. The first thing I point to is my current role, and you mentioned 20 months, 24 months, whatever. I think that is relevant. I think that is relevant, understanding the massive airport that we have. So that's one. I think all of the things that we have been talking about today, safety, understanding infrastructure delivery methods, understanding massive projects, because we're going to have to build more airports, more airport infrastructure as more and more people actually fly. I think about the decision-making we have to make. I think about, again, the leadership piece. I think about the airport perspective that I bring to the table. I think about the understanding of governments and how to lead folks. I think about the convening ability that I have with regard to Department of Defense, regard to FCC on the 5G issue. All of these issues, I think, are relevant to the experience that's needed for the FAA.
Thank you. This committee held a hearing last week to examine the NOTAM system, which experienced technical issues in January. That disruption resulted in the first nationwide ground stop of air travel since September 11th attacks. In turn, 1,300 flights were canceled, over 10,000 flights were delayed, and that disrupted air travel for tens of thousands of travelers. Congress asked the FAA to update the NOTAM system in 2012, and here we are 10 years later, only halfway through this one project. The FAA has told us that these NOTAM fixes aren't expected to be completed until the year 2030, 18 years after Congress has directed these changes. I see this NOTAM problem as one symptom of our slow progress on modernizing our air traffic control. We spent lots of money and many years, but we haven't seen sufficient benefits to the system. The FAA needs an administrator to help us improve our air traffic control and provide airspace users the benefits they've been promised. So if confirmed to the role, what approach would you take to address these concerns?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I think some of the challenges that the FAA has is sort of a direct correlation to small things impacting big things. The fact that a file was deleted leads directly to safety, a safety issue. My work in modernizing systems, both in the United States Army and in transportation organizations, will help with that. Speaking of modernization of IT systems, one of my assignments was the non-commissioned officer in charge of the information management systems for all of U.S. Army Europe. And so I think these small things that impact really big things are the things that we are going to experience in the aviation field going forward.
Thank you, Chair Cantwell.